There are about 30,000 people working in international financial services in Ireland, and around 500 firms. About 2 billion per annum in total tax contribution. And that level of economic activity has built up gradually over 20 years and is all export activity, so it adds to our balance of payments. So that's a very substantial sector by any standards, and a very substantial contribution in terms of employment. International financial services in Ireland has developed in response to market demands, and that means that individual sectors have grown and developed as demand for those products has emerged internationally. So if you look at any of the very important sectors that we have here, such as the funds industry. The funds industry has developed over 20 years. The first international funds were not established in Ireland until 1989 in response to the demand for international investors of vehicles, fund vehicles, in which they can invest. So from many domiciles investing in one fund vehicle, it brings about a lot of efficiencies for the investment manager, but it also means that there's a lot of intellectual property and skills developed, connectivity into international investment markets by service providers such as us. We have, for example, aviation finance, and that started with GPA sometime, I would guess, in the 1980s. Guinness Peat Aviation, a very large company that ultimately failed, but which spawned a lot of subsequent companies when people who work for a GPA went off to work for other organizations. So some of the aviation finance companies that we have today in Ireland are some of the most prominent in the world. You have other sectors such as insurance. So wholesale insurance and reinsurance activity established because there was a need for that marketplace for the European domicile that was allowed those entities to be established and allowed them to operate in accordance with the demands of the international marketplace. We have maybe 700 or 800 people employed in that activity, a lot of tax revenue. Life assurance companies, parallel to the funds industry, life assurance industry needed domiciles where life assurance companies could be established and sell into international markets, single domiciles. And Ireland was an attractive place for that industry to be established. We have international banks here, built up over the last 30 or 40 years. We have, securitization, we have stock exchange listings. So we have a wide range of activity goes to make up those 30,000 people. But they all have two or three things in common. One of which there was market demand for the activity, international market demand. And secondly, Ireland was an attractive location because our regulatory environment accommodated that very high quality activity. But also we had the labour here at a competitive cost to do the work that was required. There are a number of trends, but probably the most important of them actually represent difficulties. So we've had a very large financial crisis, global financial crisis, which arguably has been the most severe for 100 years or so. They are difficult macroeconomic conditions for financial services businesses, which are at the heart of the difficult dynamic, to prosper and thrive, because the overall market isn't growing, money supply growth is negative or low, savings, new savings are negative and low. So that's a tough environment for businesses to grow in. But there also the financial crisis has led to an enormous volume of new regulation, and that is potentially quite problematic, problematic for the macro economies, the international macro economies, and quite problematic for international financial services firms operating in Ireland. Well, in the sectors in which we are active, we have some of the best reputations in the world for innovation. Otherwise, we wouldn't succeed. I mean, we're operating in a very sophisticated global economy. We're operating in very sophisticated sectors, and we're operating in a very competitive environment where there's lots of other locations looking to do the work that we do. So the reason we have succeeded is because we've put together, businesses that can compete very well in the sectors in which they operate. And we, have, been innovating and are continuing to innovate. We have a huge emphasis in our business on new product development, on IT infrastructure and process development. Probably takes up 20–25% of our management time. And that's just our business and it's just our sector, but all of the other sectors are equally, committed to innovation. In financial services, you cannot do anything without the permission of your regulator. So unless the regulatory environment allows innovation in new products and allows you to do that, well, you as a firm are powerless. So that aspect of it is a very important part. Innovation is not just having new technology. In financial services, innovation is around having new products, having new processes, offering new services to clients. So there is a product development and regulatory aspect to it, which is not present, for example, as regards the other services firms that are operating in Ireland, the IT firms or the social media firms. Financial services is unique in respect of the environment in which it operates.